Welcome to the Law Firm Toolkit podcast, where we get into the real tools within a lawyer's briefcase that actually make an impact for the overall management and operation of the firm. Here is where we dive into the nitty-gritty of how to improve the firm's efficiencies to equate to a better work-life balance. My name is Haylee. This is the Law Firm Toolkit podcast, and today's episode is so special because it's all about living a better life. In today's episode, we have special guest Denney joining us to have a difficult conversation around attorney burnout and work-life balance. Dell is an author, coach, and motivational speaker. He is the host of the Upgrade Your Life podcast and has even traveled over 1 million miles conducting personal development seminars. So we are so excited to have you here with us today, Dell. Thank you. Let's just have you start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Haley. I appreciate that. Thank you for the introduction. I am absolutely honored to be here. A little background on myself. I think you did a great job. Basically, coach, speaker, author. That's who I am. But if I gave you a little bit more background, I grew up in Indiana. How I got into this really started. I've been in personal development for over 20 years, which is crazy to think about right now that I've been doing this for so long. And I've been able to make a career out of this, but it didn't start off that way. It started off more so for my own benefit. I grew up in a small town where it was cornfields. If you ever saw the movie Hoosiers, or the listeners or have ever seen that, that was basically where, I grew up. That town was like maybe 45 minutes away from my house. Like, that's kind of the picture, right? And I didn't want to live in a small town my whole life. I didn't like that small town thinking. I wanted to be better. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do some amazing things. And so I started to read everything I could, to take seminars, and go to classes and do all these things to better my life. And over time, my life got better. And over time, people would come to me with their own problems. And I was like, I had that same thing happen to me. Try this, try that thing. And it would work. And the next thing you know, people are paying me for advice and coaching. And I've been able to help some amazing people along the way. So from TV celebrities to athletes to entrepreneurs to investors to lawyers to dentists, doctors, and everything in between. It's been absolutely amazing.
And so just to set the stage here, talk about briefly, what is high performance coaching?
Yeah, so high performance coaching, it's like life coaching, but on steroids. That's the best way to do it. What I do is I focus on 5 really core habits. There's a lot of things that can help move the needle, but we really focus on 5. It's clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and influence. And we really dive into that. Life coaching is good, but life coaching is like, hey, tell me about your goals. How do you feel? How does that make you feel? And that's good. But high performance coaching is really challenge based. It's like, okay, let's get you going. You say you're going to do this thing. I want to see it happen, right? So it's a little push. As coaches, we get paid to push. And that's really what high performance coaching is.
I think that definitely sets the stage for us here, especially separating it from the life coaching. So as I was preparing for this podcast, I saw a statistic and I just thought it was super interesting because, you always hear that attorneys and being a lawyer is a super stressful position, that they're always working, those kinds of things. And so I was just looking for some actual statistics and found that the Bloomberg Law Survey said that lawyers experience burnout in their jobs over half of the time. I think it was like 52% of the time. And then it even went on to say that over 45% of lawyers said that their work was negatively affecting their well-being. So this issue of burnout and negatively affecting your home life is something that obviously we want to kind of work on in this industry. So let's talk more about burnout and how high performance coaching can kind of help with that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I work with a lot of high performers, and the real definition of a high performer is someone that can sustain high performance for the long term, right? It's not just being able to work hard and be a flash in the pan and then you burn out and then you don't perform. But true high performance is that sustainability when it comes to high performance. And a lot of times when burnout comes, it's because, they then become reactive towards it, right? So they're not being proactive towards getting ahead of the burnout. And so once they start burning out, they're kind of scrambling of like, what do I do? I'm so stressed out. And I don't want to say it's too late, but it's a little tougher to overcome, right? They say that, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so what I would do in most situations when I'm working with somebody, whether it's an attorney or whether it's a doctor that's really experiencing stress, is what we do is we focus on, I like to call them pit stops. Now, I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. Okay. I grew up in a small town called Shelbyville, but most people know where Indianapolis is. And there's a really, really famous race here called the Indianapolis 500. And I don't know when everyone's listening to this podcast, but the race is coming up soon in my backyard. Very, very famous race, right? Now it's really interesting because you have these high performance vehicles, right? They're basically airplanes with wheels on them. Like they're so fast, they're incredibly, they're amazing specimens of machinery, right? Now the interesting thing about race cars is that they take pit stops, and they take pit stops so that they can go further and faster. If they didn't take pit stops, they would just run out of gas, right? If they didn't take pit stops, their car would break down. And they take these scheduled pit stops throughout the race. And just like race cars, it's the same thing for us. We should have scheduled pit stops throughout our life. And so when I'm working with clients, what we do is we focus on these scheduled pit stops. So we have daily, weekly, and monthly pit stops that we take. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, daily, for example, what are you doing on a daily basis to recharge your batteries, right? Um, for example, there is a really good friend of mine. He's an attorney, and one of his daily practices is meditation. And he was telling me, I would, same thing. I was burnt out. It actually went. He actually kind of had a crazy story behind it. He thought he was having a heart attack, and he was stressed out. He thought he was having a heart attack. His chest was beating, felt like his chest was caving in. Took him to the emergency room. They ran the tests, nothing, panic attack. He did that two more times,
Wow.
and he was just so burnt out. He was so stressed out. And then he started meditation. He said, I haven't had any panic attacks since. I feel so much better. I just 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, I'm good. I haven't had any more panic attacks. And so that's one of the first places I would start is, what is a daily practice that you can do? Something that you look forward, something that can recharge your batteries. That could be meditation. That could be a walk in the morning, a walk, walking the dog, whatever it might be, something that you look forward to. So you have this habit, this daily pit stop. And then we think about weekly habits, right? That could be getting a massage, right? Some of us love to get massages. It's very relaxing. So we might look forward to our Friday massage. It could be going to the chiropractor. It could be cryotherapy. We might have some type of weekly practice that we look forward to. And then we have our monthly practice. And this could be taking a day trip, getting out of the town, right? Getting out of the city, going exploring somewhere, going to take a hike up in the mountains, right? And when we have these little pit stops, these daily, these weekly, these monthly pit stops in our life, you'll find that we're being proactive towards burnout out as opposed to being reactive to burnout. So it's very important that we have these milestones in place.
And scheduling them out, like you said, so that we can eliminate that excuse of, oh, I just don't have the time.
Exactly. It's got to be in the calendar. That's one. If it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. It's not important to you. So have those in the calendar. So put your walks in there. Put your massage on Friday in there. Have them in the calendar if it's important.
I think that's super important because we are so active about making sure our meetings are on the calendar and our tasks are on the calendar, but often it's easy to forget about the things we need to do to ensure we're avoiding that overstress and burnout.
100%.
I also wanted to talk just a little bit about some strategies that you can right along these lines that you can actively use to achieve that work life balance in your life outside of, scheduling and making sure that you have the time that's not focused on work.
Yeah. So again, the calendar is so important that we do these things. So we put our work in our calendar, but what about our personal life? What about being intentional with family, right? I have three kids, and I can just haphazardly go about my parenting, or I can say, you know, it's important to me that I spend time with each child individually. So where can I carve out time in my calendar for each week for each child? And so I'll put on the calendar. Maybe Monday night we go to ice cream with one of the children, and Maybe Wednesday night we go out for a walk, just me, my daughter and the dog, right? And so it's important to craft these certain little things. But I also think it's important to talk about work-life balance. And I like to reframe work-life balance as more as harmony. The reason why I say that is when we think about work-life balance, we think that work and life should be balanced. It should be equal parts. And the reality is it's really tough to do those two things, to truly always have equality between the two. From the attorney standpoint, I think about the justice and mercy balance that we have, right? We want to have balance, but it's really tough to do. And so I like to liken it to harmony and music and thinking about an orchestra. Let's say you go to the symphony and you look at the symphony, you have your woodwinds, you have your percussions, you have, everybody that's there. Now, if we gave everybody balance, the symphony would not sound very good. If we said, all right, percussions, you get 5 minutes, violins, you get 5 minutes, cellos, you get 5 minutes, it's not going to sound very good. But there's going to be times in our life where we're the maestro, we orchestrate the symphony, and we might say, okay, a little bit here, okay, now you come up over here, a little bit over there, brass woodwinds, and then it creates this beautiful harmonic symphony. And that's the same thing for our life. There's going to be times in our life where we have to understand we might be working a little extra hard here, but then there's going to be another point that comes into our life where we're going to want to focus on family. It might be that vacation. And so you need to know, am I in this work mode right now? Am I letting the work play right now? Or am I letting family time play? And we don't want to mix the two, because when it comes time to that vacation and we're with our families, disconnect from work. It's so important that we do that. And so to me, it's not about necessarily that balance, but it's more about creating harmony.
Lovely. I've never heard it put like that before, but I am obsessed with it. And so when we talk about it like this, what would you say are some common misconceptions or challenges that people really do encounter when trying to achieve that harmony?
It is just that, it's that equal parts. You might think, um, well, this week was really busy, so therefore next week isn't going to be busy. It may be a whole 3 months of busyness at work. It may be that time. We might be an attorney and we might be in this really crazy case right now, and that's going to take all of our attention. And that's fine. We have to give ourselves that grace. I think that's the most important thing, is we give ourselves grace and that permission to be all in at that moment. But when that season is over, then we need to step back and we need to focus on the things that matter. So it's not that we're going to have this balance like one for one, every single day. We might go heavy in one area and then we'll back off on another area. So we have to be careful about that. I think it's just that we give ourselves some grace. And I also think that's where having a coach is really important as well, or a mentor or whoever it might be, is when you're going through those times, it's important to talk through those situations with someone. Talking through, someone that's a third party in the situation, to give guidance, to show blind spots, to say, hey, it's okay what you're doing. Like, you can totally do what you're doing. Do not beat yourself up over this. This is where you're supposed to be. So that's one of the important things of having a mentor or coach, is when you're going through those heavy workloads, is having someone to lean on for those moments.
And I think goal setting plays a huge part in this as well, right? Being realistic about what you expect for your next 3 months, 6 months, year, and so on. So, can you talk a little bit more about what goal setting will do with a high performance coach?
Yeah, I geek out in productivity. I love this stuff. I really do. And first, let me talk about where people go wrong, because you said, creating the proper expectations, right? Where a lot of people go wrong is they have, like, we all have to-do lists, right? We have this task list. We have all these things that we have to do. And where people go wrong is they have a really big task list. They have like 10 things that they have to do for the day. And this is what I found usually happens, and the listeners might be able to relate to this. Haley, you might be able to relate to
Yes.
this, but you see these 10 things on your list, and you either A, look at the list, and you're like, man, that is a really big list. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I just don't want to do it right now. Like, it's just overwhelming. We push it to the side. Or we look at the list. Okay, I got 10 things to do. I do the first three things, but then I feel like a failure because I neglected the other seven things. And so it creates this negative momentum in my life, which isn't good. Or we look at the 10 things and we do the 10 things the first day. The next day comes. We do another 10 things the next day. And then the third day and the rest of the week, we're burnt out and we don't do anything. Right.
Yep.
And it's not a very good pattern. And so what I found in high performance work is three is the magic number. We're able to wrap our mind around the number three. We've seen it through this psychology and all this stuff. Our brains can wrap around three. And so what we do is we focus on three tasks per day when it comes to productivity. Now, these tasks aren't just any old task. We prioritize these tasks. And so when I break down my day, I'm going to have three things. So the first task that I'm going to do, it's called a needle mover. This is a high priority task. And the way that I frame this in my mind is if I only did one thing for the day, and it was just this one thing, and it was successfully done, it would have been well worth it today. So this is the big domino that needs to fall. This task, this high priority task, is something that's getting me closer to my 90-day goals, right? So if we took a step back, like a big overview, I'm going to have 3 to 5 90-day goals. And so that needle mover is something that's getting me closer to that 90-day goal. So that's the first task that I have. Now, the next two tasks are what I call secondary tasks. These are medium to low priority tasks. This could be going to the dry cleaner. This could be getting the oil change. This is, getting groceries or whatever it might be. The world's not going to fall apart if we don't do those things that day, but it still needs to be done. And so we want to make sure that we have those taken care of as well. And so I'm going to structure my day with those three tasks at hand. But here's where we take it a step further, okay? So what my challenge for most people, if you're doing really, really well, you're doing those three tasks. But if you want to take it to another level, my challenge is to plan your upcoming week. So every Sunday, this is what, as they say, separates the men from the boys. If you can, on Sunday, have a reoccurring event in your calendar where every Sunday you're looking at the upcoming week and you're putting the stuff on your calendar that needs to go on there. You're putting in your appointments, your meetings, and all that good stuff. But my challenge is to think about what is a needle mover and two secondary tasks that you can put on each day. So now you're being proactive as you go into the week. So you're not being reactive to what's going on, but you're being so diligent and proactive about your goals. That's what allows you to achieve your 90-day goals, which is really important.
Every day is one step towards achieving that 90-day goal.
Absolutely.
Love that. I'm taking notes over here for sure.
Well, and here's the other cool part about this is, some people when they make their task list in the morning, they'll make their tasks like, okay, in the morning I'm going to do these three things, but they're missing a really good opportunity for their brain to go to work on this. Now, the reason why I say that is we have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. Our conscious mind, goes to sleep, but our subconscious mind, it's always going. Our brain is always running, right? And when we look at our goals the night before, like if we have that task list the night before, when we go to sleep, our conscious mind or our subconscious mind continues to go to work on those goals. So when we wake up in the morning and we start going through that task list, because we gave our brain that much more runway to think about the problems at hand, you'll find that solutions come even easier just because we thought about the night before. We went to bed, our brain keeps on going. So that's another little trick of the trade when it comes to being more productive.
That makes so much sense. It makes me think of they used to tell us in school to sleep with our book the night before to help us with our test.
There it is. It's the same thing. It's the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, and really top performers, they know how to tap into that subconscious mind. It's such a powerful part of our brain. I don't think we tap into it enough. I know I don't.
Yeah, I know I can learn a lot more about that myself. So, before I let you go here today, Del, what advice would you give to attorneys that are really struggling to find that work life balance or just feeling overwhelmed by all of the demands of life and their career and everything?
For sure. So, the most important thing, the number one, so we've talked about our health, we've talked about productivity, and we've talked about all these things. But the number one high performance habit that there is clarity. Clarity is the number one most important high performance habit. And when we don't have clarity around our life, we can just feel like we're just going through the motions. And so, in the introduction earlier, you mentioned I used to travel doing personal development seminars and all that good stuff. And that was fun. That was pre-COVID, doing a lot of live events. And one of the things that I would always ask the audience, and this was fun for me, is I would ask a loaded question. I would ask, if I gave you $1 million, what would you do with it? And people would shout out different things. And I knew someone was going to say travel, and that was my cue. I'd jump in. Okay, where do you want to travel to? And then they just look at me like a deer in headlights. I don't know. I just want to travel. And the teaching lesson of it was the number one reason why people don't get what they want is because they don't know what they want. They never clearly defined it for themselves. So when we're general with our goals, we get general results. And so if you find yourself in burnout, if you find yourself struggling right now, get clear on your goals. Come back to that why moment. And so, why are you an attorney in the first place? Why are you practicing this certain type of law in the first place? When you get clear on your goals and you get clear on your life's vision, everything will find its place. And so there's a lot of cool things to do. I'm a big believer in vision boards. I think vision boards are important because it creates clarity on the life that you want and the life that you want to build, and you're being intentional about it. So from your family to the house that you want to have to maybe the practice that you want to create, creating that vision board. There's a lot of cool ways to do vision boards. But what that does, it just creates clarity on that life. So I would say, number one, create clarity on the life you truly want. Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. So what is that perfect life that you want? And then you start working towards it. And then, so once we understand that vision, I'd also couple it back with those pit stops that we talked about earlier, those daily, weekly, monthly practices. So if you can create that vision and have those pit stops in your life, you'll really see burnout go out the window.
This has been so insightful and amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Del. We really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it was my pleasure to be here.